Cool. Welcome back, everyone. I hope you had a good break. So yeah, as you can probably tell by the presentation, I'm Patrick Goodden from Brompton Technology. I'm the technical sales manager for the UK and Ireland, and I'm here to talk to you about accurate color reproduction and RGBW panels. I guess because, as we're here in sort of an educational setting, it's sometimes find it helpful to say a little bit about my background, how I got into this role. I actually did a sort of a straight music and drama degree doing performance stuff. But then I came out of that degree and went into sort of like technical theatre and working on events and through projection. And then that's how I got into the LED world. And so now instead of being behind the desk operating the stuff, I'm out talking about it and promoting the company and then just talking about the industry in general. So if you have the next slide, please. That's all good. So yeah, just got a little bit about the company. Brompton is a UK-based manufacturer of LED processing. If you don't know what an LED processor is, it's a very important part of like a VP workflow. One that might not be 100% apparent from looking around here because we've got a camera, we've got LED, but what is sitting behind in a rack there is an LED processor, and that's controlling the LED and telling the pixels what to do, managing the color, making sure it looks great on the camera. And throughout this talk, we're going to go through a lot of the features and things that we do to make sure the color on the LED is looking as good as possible. So we've been a company for about 12 years now. We're about 80 people globally across 5 offices with our headquarters in London, and that's where all our manufacturing, our support. So it's all London based, it's London built, London designed, but goes around globally to a multitude of studios and applications. But it's not just VP that we do. And actually, before 2019, when The Mandalorian started, we weren't really in the VP space at all because it didn't exist. Go to the next slide, please. So before sort of 2019, The Mandalorian, and when VP started, we were known primarily for our live events work. So we built, our processor is very rugged, it's very reliable. So on big shows like Ed Sheeran's tours, there's a picture of it. So if you just go back one slide, that's amazing. We were used on that, and then for installation work like the BT Tower, you can see here our processing was chosen for the BT Tower. And I'm going to go into this talk talk a lot about color. And they wanted to make sure that the purple of their branding was perfect, and that's why they chose our processing. If you go to the next slide. But then Rob spoke about The Mandalorian. That was a very good starting point for all this like LED and in-camera virtual effects in the virtual production world. We were very lucky to be chosen to be the processing platform on that production, which meant that when a lot of people looked at how to do VP, they saw Brompton Processing as the choice for that because we were used on that big touchstone production. And since then, the industry's got huge, and you can see a few of the. So it doesn't always have to be the massive volumes, the 20 processors, multiple cameras. It can just be as simple as a little XR stage with a floor for like a corporate boardroom or a music video or something, all the way through to our massive volumes there. Cool. Go to the next slide. Cool. So as I said before, the processor is kind of that end point. If you look at this diagram here, you can see that you've got right at this side, you've got the processor, which is our SX40, that goes to the LED wall, and that's controlling. But if you look here, there's a huge amount of work that you're doing before it hits our system. So you've got your content that's been made in the Unreal Engine or wherever you're making it. That's being rendered to your media server. That's being recorded by your camera. You set up your tracking system. And if you don't have a processor that takes all the information, all the good work you've done and processes it properly before it gets to the LED wall, it all falls apart. So you've done all this really good work, and then you're sending all that content, all that work through one single point. If that doesn't manage your color properly, manage how it's looking on your camera properly, you're not going to get a good result when it hits your LED. Cool. Go to the next slide, please. Cool. So this is just like a quick video Hey, we won an Emmy. This is just a quick video going through showing our products, and as it's going through, you'll see some of our features and some of the project that we've been working on. So I'll just let. Yeah, that's quite all right. Yeah, just pull that down. That's cool. Cool, thank you. Let's get the next slide up. Cool, so yeah, so you can see that there's a huge amount of projects that have trusted our processing with their content. And one of the big things about why people choose our processing is the color performance. And we have to do a huge amount of work because LEDs are very, every LED panel is different. They drive the pixels different. They've got different pixels. They've got different internal driver chips. They've got different, and all these different panels, we need to make sure that you're getting the best possible color as possible. And one of the things that helps us do that, if I get the next slide, is our calibration system. Oh, sorry. Forgot what slide was coming next. No, keep going. That's just a big picture of a stage. There it is. And there's another big picture of a stage. And then what I wanted to say was our calibration system. So in order to measure color, we've built our own calibration system because we need to know every pixel on this wall has a slightly different color performance. You don't turn on your LED wall to a green and you're getting the exact same green out of every pixel. Each pixel will vary. And if we don't measure those color the color capabilities of each individual pixel, we're not going to be able to drive the content and the color accurately. So we have our own color calibration system called the Hydra that before you buy your panels in the factory, we measure every single pixel on your LED wall, and then we turn that into a report. Next slide. Cool. So this is sort of our color report that comes out of our calibration system. And I'm not sure if you've seen this chart before, but this is called a CIE chart. And this is sort of all visible color, or that the human eye can see represented on a 2D graph. And if you see this white triangle here, that is what your LED panel, this is just a sample measurement, every panel will be different. The LED will be able to represent accurately any color within that triangle. But if you've created some content, let's say that wants this green up here, that is outside that triangle, the LED is not going to be able to accurately represent that. And that means we then have to get you as close as possible while still maintaining the color quality and the color hue that you're aiming for. If you go to the next slide, if you go into green, we can zoom into sort of this green area. And this is quite a standard panel. You see each one of these dots is a pixel, and you can see how varied each pixel is. So one pixel can do this green right up here, and one pixel can only do this green right down there. And if we don't manage that properly, you're going to end up with a very noisy and uncooperative image that's going to be really hard to work with when you're trying to get color accuracy through the VP process. If you pop to the next slide. So yeah, that's our calibration is called dynamic calibration, and that allows you to, we give you all the color information, and then you can choose how that color is managed on the processor. Cool. Let's go to the next slide. So one thing that our calibration process allows you to unlock is the ability to show HDR video. And this is incredibly important because in a VP environment, you're generally running the wall at quite a low brightness. And if you're able to pump HDR video and display it properly on the processor, you can get a huge amount more detail in the very, very dim areas of your content. HDR video, you know, it's prioritizing the detail in that very, very low end. So when you're running some dimmer content, you know, I think earlier we were talking about a dungeon scene, that's going to be very dim. If you're running your screen dim with dim content, you still want to make sure that you're getting all the detail in your video content. And I think going through in a second, after I talk a bit more about color, I'll show you some of the features that we do to ensure you're getting all that detail in the low end of the content. Cool. Should we go to the next slide? So we've just got a few other tools in there just to be able to allow you to tweak colors within the processor. You know, it's not just a box that takes in a content and spits it out. If you want to make any color changes, you could do it upstream in your render engine, you could do it in the Unreal Engine, or you can do some of these color changes on the processor itself. Actually, yesterday I was at a short film shoot at a studio in London, and they were using some of these tools to pull in some of the color capabilities of their scene and get their scene looking exactly how they want. So we've got a color replace, which allows you to, you know, as you can see by that example, pick a color, replace it with another color. We've got a 14-way color corrector, which allows you to take any of sort of primary, secondary, or tertiary colors and just mess with their hue, their saturation, and their brightness. If we go to the next slide, we've got a curve, which allows you to sort of boost the highlights and the lowlights of white, red, green, and blue. And then we have a 3D LUT. If you don't know what a 3D LUT is, it's essentially a way of remapping color. You get a sort of, this is a LUT, sort of a 17 cubed LUT, and then it allows you to say that, okay, actually, when I receive this green value, make it slightly different green, or when I receive this red value, make it blue, right? Let's say you're in sort of, if you were filming The Matrix, you might apply a LUT that sort of brings all the color into that sort of greeny look that The Matrix is going for. So we can upload these LUTs into our processor to give you the look that you want on the LED. Go to the next slide. Cool. So I mentioned before when I was talking about HDR about low brightness and low brightness enhancement. Again, very important. You're in a studio, you're generally not running. For a live event, you might be running your panels as bright as you want. In the studio, you might be down at 15, 20, 25%. So you need to make sure you're still getting the detail and quality in that low brightness area. So we go next slide. So we have a feature called extended bit depth, which allows you to run your panel faster to so to give you more detail in the low end. So I'm not going to go into the exact technical descriptor exactly how we're doing this, but what it allows you to do, on the right-hand side, you see an image, a very dim image that has been with our feature turned off. And you can see you are not getting, like, in the details in the rocks down the bottom, we're not getting it. We're not getting the gradient in the sky is looking very, very bandy, but we're getting bands of brightness rather than a smooth gradient. What we're able to do on the processor is turn on our features, and it will run the panels in a slightly different way, but while aiming to maintain and giving you the details and the gradients that you need to display this content properly, which if you're trying to shoot a low brightness scene, will be very important. If we do the next slide, we also have a feature called Pure Tone, which is doing a similar thing, but as LED panels dim, they don't always dim in a linear fashion, meaning if we ask the processor asks the panel for 5% gray, like a 5% red, green, blue, the panels might not give it back to us. So we do a measurement that measures the panel's performance across the whole dimming range at that very low brightness, and then we apply a correction to make sure you're getting a proper grayscale across your entire dimming range of your processor, ensuring you're getting the right color and as few bands as possible. Can I get the next slide, please? So the other thing that I was going to speak to you today was about RGB W panels. And this is important because LED panels are often used, you know, whether you want them to or not, they are a lighting source. I know I'm being lit by these lights here, but there's also a lot of light coming off these panels. And in a VP volume where you might be surrounded by LED, a lot of that light is hitting people's skin. It's reflecting off everything in the room. I know when Rob was speaking earlier, he showed us sort of a car shoot where the car is completely enveloped by LED. All that light is going to be reflecting off the color of the car. So the way we manage the light that's coming off these panels and the color capabilities of it is incredibly important in giving us accurate reflections. So we can go to the next slide. So standard panels, like these ones here, have red, green, and blue emitters on them. So they give out red, green, and blue light, and then those combine together to create the great saturated colors, which is amazing to the eye because our eyes also work with red, green, and blue emitters. So we're receiving the right color, we're combining those colors together, and we're getting accurate color in our eyes, which is great. But the problem with this is, if we go to the next slide, back. Yeah, cool. Yeah, keep going. The one with the guy is the right slide, I think. The problem is when this hits people's skin, because our skin contains a huge amount of color in it, and there's actually quite a lot of. Sorry, I might have sent you too far forward. Do you want to just go back one? Cool. As you can see here, this is the red, green, and blue reproduction of an LED panel. Now, all this color here is not represented in the light that is leaving this panel. So when this hits our skin, that includes a lot, and all skin tones have a lot of like orangey color in them. That light, because the color's not in the light, it doesn't reflect back, and we look very red and orangey. So if we look at this picture here of this very handsome young gentleman on the next slide, he's not looking completely natural. So if we skip forward, that is why we have introduced a feature called True Light, which is how we manage the color of LED panels to give you more natural reflections when you're using them in a VP environment. So if we go to the next slide, here is a sort of a comparison of, so this is the guy lit with standard panels with just red, green, and blue light. And then this is when we introduce a white emitter or an extra emitter into the panels, and you can see that he's looking far more natural and his skin tones are looking far more natural. We go to the next slide. And this is because, as I said before, when you are using just red, green, and blue, a lot of this color information is not in the light as it leaves the panel. When we turn on a white emitter, it just creates a much broader spectrum. So we're getting the exact same color out of the panel, but just represented differently spectrally. So we now have those skin tones in the orangey areas are now in the light leaving the panel. So when they hit our skin, all the color in our skin reflects back, and the camera will pick up the correct skin tones. If we go to the next panel, the next slide. Cool. I've just got a little video that goes through the feature in a bit and has some more examples of how this affects people's. Is it on there? Unless it's on a later slide. It could be on a later slide. I thought it was there because the screen was black. So this is just another example of the difference in skin tone, and also you can see in the red of the headscarf she's wearing as we flip between. Do you want to go back one slide? You see in RGB the red is the scarf is looking too saturated. It's only reflecting those really saturated reds, and her skin tones just don't look natural. Looks a bit like a raspberry. And if we skip to the next slide, you can see she's looking far more natural. And suddenly the light leaving your LED is more spectrally aware, and we're getting proper color out of the LED. Do you want to skip the next slide? So yeah, ideally we're trying to get as close to daylight as possible, and this technique helps you do that. Cool. Next slide. This might be the video. No? I hope it's fine. It might not have copied across properly. We'll leave it. It's cool. Do you want to go to the next slide? And as I said, this works for all skin tones. All skin tones have those orangey pigments. So again, for this lovely chap, we go from his skin not looking completely natural to the next slide, where he's lit, more spectrally aware, and we're getting proper reflections of proper skin tones. Cool. Next slide. And yeah, this is just an example on a color checker chart. You can see if we look at this red, the red with RGB is looking a bit too overly saturated. Once we light it with RGBW, it's looking looking much better. Cool. Next slide. So yeah, there's a few problems with RGB video when you're lighting people or things, and we're just going to go through some of them here and what the solutions are within the technology. So just hit next. This slide has a few things. So with RGBW, there's many different combinations that achieve the exact same color. So we can turn on different LEDs but have this exact same color if that's managed properly. So if you click next, you can choose how much you turn that white LED on, that extra LED on, and then we'll change what we do with the red, green, and blue LED to ensure you still get the exact same color. Cool, perfect. So you can choose how much of the white LED you use, and we'll still give you the same color, just represented different spectrally. If you go to the next one, you might have some very, very bright scenes, and you might want to boost your LEDs to get the most brightness out of your panel. And so for that, if you click next, we have a spectral headroom, which allows you to boost your pixels as bright as they can go. So if you've got like a really bright light or a sun, you've got a very dim scene, but you want to make sure that the bright light or the sun is as bright as possible. You can say, okay, well, let's boost it so when we want it, we're getting the brightest the panel can possibly do. And because if you hit next, different cameras will perceive LEDs differently. You can get your color looking as amazing as you want to the eye. You put your camera on it and you're like, oh, actually, I'm not picking up as much red as we want. So if you hit next, you can choose to boost or pull back the red, green, the blue LED. So if the color you're getting in the camera is not exactly how you want it, you can pull down the green or boost the red and just mess with the colors a little bit. And while you do that, we will affect what the other LEDs are doing, so you're still getting accurate color. And this is very complex. If you hit next, because we are doing this on a per pixel basis. So if you think every pixel on this screen is different, you're giving us the video, and every pixel is working out how to introduce that white pixel per frame with no latency. And for that, we have our, if you hit next, we have our G1 receiver card, which is our new card that sits inside the panel that has a massive, very powerful chip on it that deals with all that color information in real time, ensuring that you're getting the best out of the panels. Cool. Do you want to hit next? And this is just some color data. So again, if you look at the right-hand side, this is what I was speaking about earlier about how the standard red, green, blue panels, you see we're just representing, we've just got these three very peaky spikes of red, green, and blue. We're not getting a good overall spread of color. And then when we introduce the white pixel, the extra pixel, we're getting much closer to sunlight and you're getting the natural colors. And this is not just for skin. If as I said before, if you're wrapping a car around an LED and that's hitting the car, it's not going to look proper. The colors might look overly saturated if you don't do this. If you're doing like advertising or a fashion shoot, or you've got clothes where the colors you're using are very important, lighting just with LED could cause problems with those colors. Cool. Do you want to hit next? Cool. Hey, I found the video. Perfect. Let's play this. Cool, perfect. And do you want to hit next? Cool. So just a very brief overview that how we're able to do this is with our very powerful calibration system that can measure very accurately the color of the pixels. And then we have inside each panel is our card, which takes in the video, processes it, and makes sure that what's coming out the panel is exactly how the creators want it. Cool. I believe that is, I think that's my last slide. If we skip forward, there should be a thank you unless I've missed something. Cool. That's yes, I think that is everything. So I think I finished on time, which is amazing. Amazing. I'm getting a thumbs up from up there, so that's great news. yeah, if there's any questions, you're very welcome to ask them. Otherwise, thank you very much. Cool. Mhm. Yes. Well, yes, that's a good question. I'm glad I can clarify that. No, True Light is our support for RGBW panels or extra panels with extra emitters. So yeah, thank you for asking that. Yeah, we don't produce LED panels. We're just a processing manufacturer. So True Light is the way that we manage other people's panels. Um, yeah. Mhm. Yes. It is the camera what the camera's capturing. Yeah. Mhm. So cool. So I mean, all of our yeah, sure. So the question was about, a lot of the things I've been talking about is color accuracy, and what I've been talking about is color accuracy as it leaves the LED panel. And the question was that, well, obviously the most important thing is the camera, what the camera's seeing. Because the camera is not capturing what's on the LED accurately, then that doesn't matter. So all of our calibration tools and all that work we do in the factory to measure the panels, that is prioritizing as the color leaves the panel to the eye, because that's what we measure. That's what we can control. So anything like in terms of what the cameras can see, we've got things on the processor that allow you to affect the color to try and match and get it to look as good as it can on the camera. So as I say, we've got our 3D LUT. You can upload LUTs, or you control our processor with third-party systems like LiveLooks, live grade and simulate LiveLooks and things like that. So you could tools that like a DIT or a DOP are used to, they can control the color with those tools. Or as I said, in the True Light, we've got those tools, so you can we've done our calculation. We're saying like, hey, this is how we think the panel should run for the most accurate color out of the panel. But if you think we need to tweak, or you're not getting exactly what you want in the camera, you can pull down the red value, you can boost the green. There's all those color controls within the processor. You can change the color space within the processor. You can change your white point color targets within the processor. So we calibrate the panels and give you like, okay, this is what we think is giving you the most accurate color out of the panels, and then you get the tools to pull those color targets around and move things around, upgrade LUTs and do what you want. So yeah, there isn't a process where we take what the camera is seeing and reapply it back to the processor. It's the manual tools and the software within the software that allow you to do that matching. Or you could do LUTs on the camera and things like that as well. Yeah, so yes, we're we love to be helpful with educational institutes. As the question, it wasn't really a question; it was more of a command. But I'm very happy to do it. No, it is a big focus. Because we're a London-based company. We want to support the education sector. There's a bunch of institutions that have Brompton powered panels or get Brompton powered panels in when they need them, and we want to support education wherever we can. So sometimes we'll do sessions where people can come into our office. Students can come through and have a look at the tech. We do run free training sessions in our London office every month. They're not screened, like you can just sign up for them. So any student could sign up on those courses, come in. They're usually on a Wednesday and Thursday, the last week of every month in our offices in London. But we've also done things where we've come to universities and done like short sessions and spoken through the tech and how to use it and things like that. So, and also we've got a very, you know, our support team is great. And if you ever have any questions or anything, you feel free just to reach out to our support team, and they will come back to you with an answer. I mean, I know someone from a university recently was writing his final project on virtual production. He sent me a bunch of questions. I replied, very happy to do that. So please get in contact with support if you want any information in that regard. So yeah, whatever we can do, really. Cool. Thank you.